Good morning, or Boker Tov, as we are today going to give some thoughts in preparation for the upcoming holiday of Shavuot, the third of the biblical holidays. I guess, unfortunately, some of the listeners, I will guess, don't even know what Shavuot is. Many of the listeners do, but somehow Shavuot is one of the biblical holidays that many don't even know about because it does not have a special mitzvah associated with the holiday. So let me explain. There are three biblical holidays, and then there is two holidays which are the days of awe. The three biblical holidays is the holiday of Passover, Pesach, which is well known, of course. There is the holiday of Sukkot, where we sit in the sukkah, in the hut, which is also fairly well known. And there's the third of the biblical holidays, which is the holiday of Shavuot, which, because it doesn't have a mitzvah like not eating chametz, not eating leavened bread, or sitting in the sukkah, it is unfortunately been less known, although again it's a biblical holiday and arguably the most important of the biblical holidays, as I will explain in a moment. But first, let's start with a bracha, thanking God Almighty for the delicious coffee. If you have your own coffee, please say the blessing with me. If not, answer Amen. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Shakol Niyah B'Dvaro. I hope you answered Amen. And as we do at the beginning of each class, in order to start with another mitzvah and elicit Hashem's blessing to be successful in sharing these beautiful words of Torah, we always start with a mitzvah of tzedakah. So here we put something in the tzedakah box. And so let's move on. The title of the class is about Shavuos and teachers. And I'll explain as we move along and study today some Torah. So the biblical holiday of Shavuot, you could very easily argue, and I make this point every year. I shared this with my dear friends here, I believe last year as well. You could make the point that it is the most important holiday because how do you evaluate? How do you assess? Let me shut this off. How do you assess the value of something? There are various ways to assess the value of something. Often, value is subjective. What might be valuable to me is not valuable to somebody else, and vice versa. To somebody else, depending on their lifestyle, their value system, their needs, they might have something that's very valuable to them, but not to me. So I'm sure many examples that you could think of. Now, but one of the ways to evaluate the importance of something is by assessing what happens when you take it away. You know, there's a sort of a morbid saying that says the cemetery is filled with indispensable people. You know, that's a morbid statement to give us a little bit humility, not to allow our ego and self-inflation to go too far, and recognize our limitation, etc. Bring some humility into our lives, into ourself. Now, but how do you evaluate, let's say, in a company? So if a certain personnel is fired, quits, leaves the company, will the company survive? Can the company go on? If the answer is yes, then of course the person is not vital to the company. Not complicated. So too, when you look at a person, right? God forbid somebody loses a finger. Well, it's tragic, but the person can continue to exist. If somebody loses a limb, God forbid, an arm, a leg, tragic, more tragic than losing a finger, but you can still exist. However, if you lose if somebody, talking the abstract, if somebody, God forbid, loses their heart, they cannot continue to exist. There are certain vital organs, which without that you cannot continue to exist, which affects, and this is a topic we might discuss in a future class, which impacts the difficulty of organ transplants from a Jewish religious perspective, to be discussed perhaps at a future class. And if it's something you want for us to discuss in a future class, give us a thumbs up, and we might, God willing, discuss it, because it's a interesting and important discussion in the halachic, in the Jewish law world. But that's not for today. So if something is critical, the way to assess that is what can you do without it. So as mentioned, you take away someone's vital organ like the heart, God forbid, they cannot exist. It's not just tragic, they cannot continue to exist. So when you look at Jewish holidays, so the most important holiday usually we identify as Yom Kippur as the holiest and most important holiday, and there's truth to that from a certain perspective. But today, since we're about to approach Shavuot, and Shavuot, as mentioned, is one of the biblical holidays, and what we celebrate on Shavuot, amongst other things, is the giving of the Torah, the giving of the Ten Commandments, and it is clear and obvious that if not for the giving of the Torah, if not for the celebrating this day, this holiday of Shavuot, nothing else exists. Not Yom Kippur, and not Rosh Hashanah, and not Hanukkah, and not who we are as a people, regardless of your level of observance, religion. It all centers around the mid-post over here, the center, the foundation of who we are as a people, who we are in terms of our level of observance. All centers around this moment and this mission that God gave us, which is the giving of the Torah. You take that out, we do not exist as a people. We don't exist as a Jewish people. So Shavuot, we can, and in fact, it even goes beyond that for humanity in general. It is the center, the giving of the Torah, the Ten Commandments, and the 613 commandments is really the center of all of morality that exists in the world today, both Jewish people and beyond. So the holiday of Shavuot is the most important, most significant holiday that we ought to celebrate. L'chaim. So that was by way of introduction. I want to then, move on after this sort of general introduction. I want to move on to this statement, a statement that our sages tell us. There's two statements. There's two statements which are interesting statements, and we'll discuss that and learn an important lesson from that. There is, let me find it here in my sheets that I printed out in preparing for this class. There is a statement that relates to the parsha that we just read in the Torah, the parsha of Bamidbar, the first parsha in the book of Numbers. So over there, the Torah begins this way. Okay, this is I'm reading the Hebrew. This is in Numbers. This is chapter 3, verse 2. Shteit Azoy, it says like this. It says, Ve'ele toldot Aharon u'Moshe. This is the offspring, the birth, the children of Aharon and Moshe. B'yom Dibur Hashem es Moshe bar Sinai, and it says the following. These are, and then it continues and says, Ve'ele shmos bnei Aaron hapchor nadav avihu Elazar ve'itamar. So let me translate. The Torah says these are the children of Aaron and Aharon and Moses. And then the Torah goes on to list only the children of Aaron, his 4 children. Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, and Itamar. So the Talmud and Rashi ask immediately, it says these are the children of Moshe and Aaron, but it only lists the children of Aaron. It does not list the children of Moshe here, although Moshe had his own children. He had his own 2 children, Eliezer and Gershom. But here the Torah says these are the children of Aaron and Moshe, and goes on to list the children of Aaron, not the children of Moshe. So Rashi tells us the following, okay? For those who know Hebrew, you'll understand it in the original, but I will translate. Rashi says like this: Lefi shalimdon Torah. Remember, the title of this class is Shavuot, underrated holiday, and teachers are underrated. So listen to what Rashi tells us. Rashi says, and this is based on a Gemara in Tractate Sanhedrin, says Rashi, Azoi, Lefi shalimdon Torah, because Moses taught Torah, Melamed shekolam melamed es ben chaverei Torah, ma'ala lov hakosov ki'ilu yolodoi. Translation: it comes to teach us that somebody who teaches his friend's child Torah, it's like he gave birth to him. It's like he bore him. So, and this is again, as I said, based on the Sanhedrin, where the Sanhedrin uses the word, the Talmud in Sanhedrin says, Kol hamelamed ben chaveiro Torah mala lavakosav kila yolodo. Whoever teaches his friends, his friend's child Torah, it's like he gave birth to that child. So, even though the Torah goes on to list the children of Aaron, it starts off saying these are the offsprings of Moshe and Aaron. Why? Because Moshe is also their dad in the sense that he taught them Torah. By teaching them Torah, ki'ilu, it's as if he gave birth to them. Commentaries right away ask a question over here. And the question they ask is, by the way, I always like to give credit to where credit is due. While some of these concepts is something that I've learned myself, but this morning in preparing the class, I more particularly reviewed class given by a colleague, Rabbi Farkash from Seattle, and by Rabbi Jacobson. So some of the thoughts here are a compilation of what they have shared, and so I want to give credit where credit is due. Okay, now, so commentaries ask, what does that mean that the 2 sons of Aaron are considered Moshe's children? Didn't Moshe Rabbeinu teach all the Jewish people? In what way do these 2 particularly, Elazar and Itamar, how do they stand out that they are referred to as Moshe's children? Moshe taught everybody. This is a very important question because the answer to this question will give us an important insight into what it takes to be a successful, impactful teacher. I want to put this question on pause for a moment, and I want to move on to another medrash, a very famous medrash. Definitely famous if you hung around Chabad, because this is a medrash that the Rebbe often repeated. Let me find the medrash over here so that I can quote it properly. So bear with me, Faramenutkele, bear with me, please. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Baruch Hashem. So I'm not going to read the whole medrash inside. It's a little bit on the longer side. I'm going to read just the beginning so we get some of the holy words of the medrash. But I will then read a bit of the translation or the gist of it. So the Medrash Rabbah, which is one of the most sort of known and authoritative medrashim on the Torah, on Shir HaShirim, on Song of Songs, chapter 1, on verse 22, says the following. Omar Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir said, Azoi, following. B'shah sha'amdu Yisrael lifnei Har Sinai lekabel haTorah. When the Jews stood before Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, which is today, by the way, today it says on the first of the month of Sivan, which today we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, the Jews arrived and camped opposite Mount Sinai. So it says B'shah. So this happened thousands of years ago today. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said to the people, Ani nosen lachem et haTorah, I am giving you my most precious gift. I'm giving you the Torah. Bring to me good guarantors, reliable guarantors, so that I could give you the Torah and have a guarantor to make sure that the Torah will be kept, the Torah will remain in your possession, as I'm giving you something so valuable, and it's not lost, abused, stolen, forgotten, etc. So the Medrash says that they said to HaKadosh Baruch Amr Lefanav, they said to him, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, Avoteinu Arevim Blanu. Our parents, our ancestors, our parents, Abba, Avotenu, plural, are our guarantors. God said that's not enough because the parents themselves need guarantors. I don't accept. Denied. Refused. Unacceptable. So they made another offer. They said to God, Nevi'enu. Yeah? They said to God, they said the following, hold on. They said, Nevi'enu, yeah, our prophets will be our guarantors. God again refused. Finally, they said the famous line. They said, "Boneinu oivim ba'adenu," our children will be our guarantors. Medrash follows. It says, "Omra Kodesh Baruch Hu." God responded and he said the following: "Vaday arevim toivim." They are good guarantors. Al yedeihem etnen alachem. Through them, I will, or because of them as a guarantor, I will give the Torah to you. As it says in Psalms, on the mouth of the young and those who suckle, you have established the strength of Ein Oz, and Oz is referring to Torah. So which guarantor did Hashem accept in giving us the Torah? It was, as we stood in front of Mount Sinai, it was the dear Kindalach. L'chaim, l'chaim. In a sikha, in a talk, in 1952, this was a year after the Rebbe became Rebbe, the Rebbe explained the following. So what's the, every medrash, of course, has a deeper message. What's the deeper message over here? The Rebbe said, sort of homiletically, talking about medrash, he gave the following explanation. He said that when God came to the Jewish people and he said, you're going to go into the land, into the Holy Land, and you guys are going to be busy, and you're going to establish a nation. I want to make sure the Torah will remain and be kept. Their first answer was our parents. What they meant by that, again, on a more sort of homiletic level, what they meant by that was our parents who are retired, our senior citizens, we will set up for them places of Torah study. They are not busy. The life for them is not hectic. They've already gone through that stage in their life. They have the time. They have the relaxed atmosphere. They're settled. They're settled. We will set up centers of Torah for our senior citizens. They will come to class. They will study, and that will inspire the rest of the people. But we, the youngsters, we're too busy. Life is too hectic. We don't have the time to engage in Torah study. So Avotenu, our fathers, our fathers, our seniors, our fathers and mothers, our seniors, they will be our guarantors. In other words, they will connect and engage in Torah study, and through them, it will trickle down to us. And God said, no. Not that, that's not my objective. You're standing here before Har Sinai, that's not going to work. It's just not going to work. In fact, on the contrary, it is when you are at the prime of life, when you're engaging with the world, when you're influenced by the world around you, that is when Torah is so important. So they responded, they said, we have another suggestion. Nevi'enu, our prophets. On a homiletic level, that means our rabbis, our speakers, our preachers. The word Navi in Hebrew also means our preachers. We will give them a nice salary, perhaps. We will allow them to be totally dedicated to Torah study, and they will inspire us. We'll give them a home, we'll give them a nice severance package, whatever it is. They will inspire us. We will be involved here. Someone has to make a living. We will be involved with the world around us. Our rabbis, our heads of the yeshivas, who are totally dedicated, have the time to study Torah, they will be our guarantors. And Hashem said, no, that's not. I don't accept that. That doesn't work. Nein. As we say in Yiddish, Hebrew, loy mit an aleph. No, with a large aleph. No. So they thought, you know what? We have another suggestion. We are busy. We are busy. Our kinderlach, our children, will send them to yeshiva, to school, to cheder, to Hebrew school, and so on. And we will still be sort of involved in Torah study. We'll see to it that our children are involved in, and they, it was sort of a push off. And God said, you know what? Good idea. I accept that. You know, I accept that. I accept that because if your kinderlach will be engaged in Torah, then a couple of things will happen. First of all, when they are in their most precious and seed stage in their life, where everything they absorb impacts the rest of their life, that is the most important time to have them connect to their roots, to Torah, to our tradition, to our values. And if they connect then when they graduate cheder and they graduate yeshiva, they will remain connected. I accept that. We'll get back to this medrash in a moment. Let's get back to the question we introduced the class to, that why is it that Moshe is considered to have fathered the children of Aaron because he taught them? And we asked, didn't he teach all of Klal Yisrael? Didn't he teach the entire Jewish people? Why are the children of Aaron unique? And here we deal with what might be the secret or some instruction, some insight of what it makes what it takes to be a successful teacher. As we just studied, that God said, when the children are our guarantors, that's when I know the Torah will remain for all of history with the Jewish people. Baneinu, our children are our guarantors. They are the most important. They're the most important part of our nation that we need to invest in order for our Torah to continue, for our history to continue, for our tradition to continue, for our Jewish identity to continue. So the Or HaChaim, first let's go to the Gur Aryeh. He says the following. He says that the reason why these children, Aaron's children, are considered Moshe's children, is that even though Moshe taught all the Jewish children, all the people of Israel, he gave extra time to those two kids. And because he gave extra time to those children, and he puts it this way, he says, the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu taught the entire Jewish nation, that he was commanded to do by God. So that was part of his obligation. But then he went above and beyond his obligation, and he taught those two children extra time, extra heart, extra soul. That's why they are considered like he gave birth to them. The Maharal of Prague, the famous Maharal, gives another answer. I think the Kli Yakar as well, famous commentary, and he says that we find, a limited time, so I'm going to try to without getting into too much detail over here, we'll try to give over the idea. He says that the reason why these kindalach are referred to as Moses' children is because we find that Aharon, we know, lost two of his children. It says in the Torah, two of his children died. They went into the holy temple without permission when they were told not to, and they died. And it says over there that the reason why only two of them died is because Moses prayed for the well-being of Aharon's children, and his prayer was successful that half of Aaron's children, 2 out of the 4, were spared. So he says the reason why they're referred to as Moshe's children is because he prayed for them. Because he prayed for them, and as a result, they were given life. So he is their father because it was his prayer that gave them life, just like a father gives life to the children that are born. So Rabbi Farkash beautifully puts these two together. And he says that when is a teacher considered someone who's given life to his child, to the child, that it's considered his child, is when you have both these two elements combined. You don't just invest in your student that which the call of duty, that which your salary calls for, that which your obligations call for. You give them extra time. You give them time. The Talmud talks about, today we have schools, and I saw people talk about it, we have schools that only want to deal with children who are gifted children, and so on and so forth. The Talmud talks about, I remember learning this as a yeshiva boy, the Talmud talks about Rav Preda. Rav Preda, one of the rabbis of the Talmud, says he had a student that was sincere, didn't just hakachainik. He was sincere about his desire to learn, but he had what we call in Yiddish, afashtopte cup. You know what that means in Yiddish? Afashtopte cup. His head was closed. So the Talmud says that this Rav Preda would review the studies with this particular student 400 times. 400 times. Imagine, you review once, twice, 5, 10, 400 times. Rav Preda was a holy Jew. He was a big scholar. He could have said, you know what? I'll send you off to a secondary teacher. He himself studied with this student. But there's other students waiting for him. This student needed him. This student was sincere. 400 times he reviewed the studies with him. There was a great Rosh Yeshiva. He was a student of the famous Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. His name was Rav Nizhnik, if I'm pronouncing it right, or Nizhenik probably. Probably Nizhenik is more correct. And he came to New York and he went into private audience of the Rebbe, and as it is traditional, he gave the Rebbe what we call a kvittel or a pan. He gave the Rebbe a request for blessings for his family. The Rebbe read the pan, and the Rebbe said to him, what about your other children? Meaning, what about all your students? You are a Rosh Yeshiva, you're head of Yeshiva, all your students are your children. You don't mention them here for blessing, for success, in the note that you gave to me. Why does the Talmud say that if you teach your fellow's child Torah, it's like you give him life? Could have said you're a good guy, you're a caring person, you're a loving person. What does it mean you give him life? Because Torah, or that you give him birth to him. Because Torah is not just like any other wisdom. It's not just some academic exercise. It's not just some sort of wisdom that you're teaching someone. It's maybe that too. But Torah is a true guide to life. When you teach somebody Torah, when you teach them God's wisdom for how we should live life, you're giving them life. Without Torah, it's not a life. God didn't just give us Torah so that we could engage our minds. In today's day and age, in today's world, you see it so clearly that if you want your children, your grandchildren, to remain Jewish, to have Jewish values, to have proper basic moral values, you have to connect them while they're children to Torah. I want to sort of be impactful here without being negative or without putting anybody down. I'm so puzzled by the fact that parents will go out of their way to do the best for the child no matter what the expense. They'll make sure they have good food. They'll make sure they're signed up to good after-school programs, sports, hockey, baseball, whatever it might be. Good nutrition, the best doctor. But when you talk to them about sending your child to a Jewish school, to a proper Jewish school, and I really mean a full Jewish day school, which teaches them not only academics, but teaches them who they are, their core, who their essence. Oh, we can't afford it. It's too expensive. Now, it happens to be that today, in many states, including here in Florida, whether it's a voucher system or a step up for student system, the government is paying, whether you agree or not, but that's just a reality. So, but we want our children to somehow be people of the world. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. God says, so here, why is Moses considered that he gave birth to Aaron's children? He gave them extra time. He prayed for them. He prayed for their survival. That's the key to a successful teacher that will be impactful in giving life and giving birth to the student. It's Torah. HaTorah, he was saying in the diamond, Ki heim chayenu v'orech yameinu. Torah is our life. Torah gives us long life. It's not automatic. We have to invest it in our young seeds, our young saplings, and our kinderlach. That's when they will live life, real life, true life, meaningful life, impactful life, purposeful life. Otherwise, it's not a human life. When a teacher has that love to a student that he prays for his very well-being, the Talmud talks about, I do not recall now the name of the teacher that was retired as a teacher for, I think, 13 years. And he's still referred to as his student's teacher, says the Talmud, because 13 years later, he said, I still think about the well-being of my teacher, of my students. Students feel that when you have a teacher who really genuinely is dedicated to the well-being of his students in every way, shape, or form. I remember hearing a story about I'm not good in remembering names, I guess, unless I look it up before, but I didn't look this up before. It's just coming to my mind now about a teacher, a Rosh Yeshiva, head of a yeshiva, who, yeshivas, like all schools, have rules. And one of the rules, this was a yeshiva, I think in Israel, had a rule that you have to be totally immersed in the Torah study and no outside sort of engagement that has other sort of thematically or its influences are not in line with Torah thinking. The rule was that yeshiva boys are not allowed to go to the movie theater. This student who was, he was attracted, He's a human being. He was attracted, and he really wanted to go to watch a given movie that was out there. So one of the other students came and sort of tattletaled to the head of the yeshiva, who was the head of the dean, the highest spiritual sort of leader of the yeshiva, that so and so went to the movies, and it was like a zero tolerance rule. They were very strict about it. The Rosh Yeshiva immediately left, took a cab, and he drove to the theater, and he comes to the theater and he sees the yeshiva boy waiting in line to get in. And the yeshiva boy realizes his Rosh Yeshiva came, and he's like, he had a respect for Rosh Yeshiva, and he was nervous, worried, and he'll kick him out, and his parent, the whole geschichte, the whole story. The Rosh Yeshiva comes over to him, and he lovingly says and takes the following action. He takes off his warm coat. He says, "You're waiting here online. It's winter and it's really cold. And I was worried that you're standing here and you're cold." And he gives him his coat. He says, "Rosh Yeshiva, it's cold here. You're going to give me your coat?" He says, "Don't worry about it." And he gives him his coat. And the boy relates that he went into the theater and he's sitting there. He has his Rosh Yeshiva's coat on. It started to get to him. He says, "Look, this Rosh Yeshiva didn't kick me out. He didn't shout at me. He made the trip to give me the coat." And he knew that this teacher was sincere. This head of the yeshiva was a sincere person. He felt the love. He felt the sincerity. He says, I can't do this." He left the theater, and that, talk about kilo yoldoi, a real teacher gives birth to a student. That changed his life. He became a new person. Totally dedicated himself to his studies, to his values, family values, etc. So this is what the Medrash is telling us, that God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Asar says to the people, your children are the guarantors. If you will invest in the children properly, you'll give them your love, you'll give them your dedication, you'll show them that you care, you'll give them the extra time that you need. I'm not busy now. And I want to say, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to myself. This is not like, I'm talking to all of us, including myself. I'll get off my phone. I'll spend extra time, loving time with my children when they need me. I'll review the studies. When you invest in that, says God, that's the guarantee I will accept. It is for that reason that the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, in the 80s, instituted and pleaded and begged, based on this medrash, that when the 10 Commandments are read, and every single year on Shavuot, spiritually, it reoccurs, the energy of the giving of the Torah reoccurs in order for us to rededicate ourselves, refresh ourselves, and so on. It has become the custom to bring our children to the synagogue to hear the 10 Commandments. This year on Thursday morning, anytime from 9 to 12 o'clock, there is the reading of the 10 Commandments. There will be another reading later in the day if your kid is schedule doesn't allow for him to come in the morning. To hear the 10 Commandments, followed by some goodies, cheesecake, ice cream, blintzes, whatever it might be. I encourage you to imbue your child with that special merit where, again, God says, I am giving you the most precious gift, the Holy Torah, and the merit of our kindlech, that we dedicate to learning, to studying, to imbuing, and to sort of watering and caring and developing those beautiful seeds so that they continue to produce the fruits of our history, of our ancestors, because I will add another little nuance. It's not that God rejected our parents, rejected the prophets as a guarantor. I will make this suggestion that when we suggested our kinderlach, that added that then our parents and our prophets are also good guarantors. If the children are there, that excites, that inspires. I want to end off with a story. It's a very powerful story. There was a Jew by the name of Rabbi Weissmandl. Many of you know who he is. He was a very he lived through the war because he lived in a city called Nitra, which is a city in I believe in Western Europe or Eastern Europe actually, and in Eastern Europe, and he survived the war. He was a very special personality. He was a great scholar. He was an expert in decoding ancient manuscripts, and as a result, he had a tie also to the world beyond the Jewish world. And he was successful through a huge bribe in pushing off the exportation of the Jews of Slovakia to the death camps for 2 years. Unfortunately, although he tried to save more, but he wasn't successful, and eventually he himself was sent to Auschwitz. He managed to escape by sawing through with some sort of wire that he had, sawing through the lock of the cable car, and he jumped out of the train, the moving train, broke his leg, but he survived the war, but he lost his wife, children, and the entire family. After the war, he went back first to the city of Nitra, and he some other refugee survivors, a handful, came to the city of Nitra, and eventually he immigrated to the United States and established a community in Mount Kisco, which I believe is in upstate New York. And but the first holiday right after the war, they were in the synagogue. He was the son-in-law of a famous rabbi called Rabbi Ungar, who unfortunately was also killed by the Nazis. And in the synagogue, the first holiday, right after the war ended, there was a handful of people who survived the war with, of course, terrible, beyond what we could imagine, tragedy that they went through. And he got up and he made the following speech, Rabbi Weissmandl. He says, my father-in-law had the tradition right here in this synagogue, just a short, maybe year ago or two, to announce, before the services started, he would announce, all adults, please make sure to keep the proper decorum in the synagogue, not to talk, not to chatter. And if you have children here who are noisy, please take them outside. That was my father-in-law's traditional announcement. He says, here now I want to announce that if anybody has any children over here, please make sure they make a lot of noise. And he broke down crying because there was no children who survived the war. We are, thank God, blessed. We are blessed that we have so many beautiful, beautiful, as we say in Yiddish, Yiddische Kinderlach. There's no greater noise than having them come on Shavuot, the day God gave us the Torah, the day God made us into a people, into a nation, and told us that I do so knowing that you will educate, connect your Kinderlach. There's no greater noise in the synagogue Shavuot when all the kids and the babies are in there and are ready to hear the 10 Commandments, which in their merit, we are connected and we will receive the 10 Commandments. So hope to see you there. If you want more information, please reach out. Have a fantastic week. Thank you for giving me the merit to share these words of Torah. Please share it with as many as you can. Have a fantastic week. Hope to see you on Shavuot.